So I went online and I blew a whole $9.99 on a list of trivia questions. Yeah. Oh, good point. So I spent a whole $9.99 on a list of trivia questions that, not surprisingly, come from a distributor in England, and they're supposed to be for pub trivia nights. Now, I'm not interested in running a pub trivia night because I don't own a pub. I'd like to make a game out of these things. Now, when you buy data like this, you're sort of at the mercy of the data provider for what formats they'll give it to you in, and the format that I got it in is so-called CSV. So this is a pretty common file format. Most spreadsheets save to CSV format. CSV stands for comma-separated values, but that's not really a very good name. Really, a CSV file is, you think of it like a spreadsheet. There's a bunch of lines in it, and each line has a bunch of different fields, so like the cells in a spreadsheet, so individual rows in a spreadsheet. And those fields are separated by some special separator. So the name CSV comes from the case where that separator is a comma, but it could be anything, and it really depends on which file you're looking at. So I got this file, quiz.csv. We can open it up, and to do anything with it, we'll have to figure out what it's supposed to have. So here is this file. So indeed, it looks like a list of questions. And so if I look at this, looks like, so this is, lines are wrapping here. Maybe it'll be easier if I use a smaller font. For now, we'll use the system font. So now mostly each line is by itself. So there's a line of text in this file. Looks like there's a question. Then there are 4 possible answers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then there's something that looks like a category. So what kind of question is it? So this is a question about food and drink. What is the main solid ingredient of alphabet soup? So that's a food and drink question. And then finally, there's this last integer here. And if we look at these, we'll see the integers go between 1 and, I'm not sure what the largest is. Maybe 4. Okay. So we want to figure out how this thing is laid out. And one thing that you can't see by looking at it in a text editor, so maybe we'll look at it in Python, just to get a better view of things. But let me put the font back. So let's open this file. Does anybody remember how we do that? We've done this a couple of times before. I never explained it much, but it's in some examples. Yep. So open quiz.csv. Okay? So F, we assign that to F, that gives us a file. So what do we do with open files then? We want to read it. So we call f.read. And so now we have this thing, contents. And what's contents? Well, contents is a really big string. Not really useful to us yet. What should we do next? Okay, so contents, we would like to split it up. And what do we want to split it into? Yep. Into what? Before that. Yep. Into lines. So it seems there's one question per line. And so we should go and see what's available to us, maybe. So we search for Python string functions. First hit is something from docs.python.org. That's probably a good reference for us. So, too many of you are using the internet now, I guess. Okay. So there's this whole common string, a list of common string operations. And there's formatting operations. So if you look here, you can actually see an alternative to the printf formatting that looks like the way Python is going to go in the future. But what I'm interested in is splitting a string, so I'll just search for that. So string split, string capitalize, string join. So there's string split, which I can specify a separator that I want to use to split the string. And there happens to be another one called split lines, and you won't find it on this page, unfortunately. But we'll use it anyway. So now that I've told you about it, I can say contents.split lines. So I have this string, and I'm going to call split lines. So what do you think that's going to give me? What's that?
An array with lines.
Yeah. So it's going to give me an array, and each element of the array is going to be a line from this file. So if we look at the first 10 elements of this array, there they are. It's hard to see again because they're wrapping. There's the beginning of the array, and here's the first line, first element of this array, which is a line in this file. And now, notice anything weird about those lines, or anything helpful for us? Yep.
The tabs.
Yeah. So there's tabs in here. All these \T's, those denote tabs. So this is where it's helpful to open this thing up in Python and see the programmer's view of this thing, because, right, so if I say lines at 0, I get to see that programmer's view. But somehow the formatted view of it is less informative. It looks like there's a bunch of spaces between things, but actually there's tabs. And the tabs are separating the actual fields. The spaces can be used inside. So, here's a whole question. It has spaces in it, but once the question is over, there's a tab that separates that from the first answer, the second answer, the third answer, and the fourth answer, another tab that separates it from the category, and another tab that separates it from this last integer here. Okay, so what now then? Yep.
Can you split it up by the tab, like the slash key?
Yeah. So we would like to split up these lines by using these tabs. So for example, for that, we can say we can use this split function, and the split function takes, or method takes one argument, which is the delimiter, or the string or the character that you want to use for splitting. So if I split that line, it actually turns it into an array, where each element of this array now is what we want. Okay? So I can split a line this way. And all right, that's good. So now I want to do the whole shooting match. So what I would like is an array where each element of the array represents a line from this file, but it actually stores that thing as an array itself. Okay, so I would like an array that contains, let's say, line.split tab for each line and lines. So if I look at A at 0, there's the first question, all nicely split up into its question parts and its answer parts. If I look at A at 1, that's a different question. If I look at A at 2, that's yet another question. And if I look at, for example, A at 2, at 0, what's that? Yeah, so it's just the string that is the question for question 2 in this array. And if I look at 1, 2, 1, so somebody tell me what that is. 4. It's the string that has the single character 4 in it. And at 2, 2, 3, 4. So everything we want is in here, and it's all nicely stored in arrays. So that's a way that's easy to work with. So there you go. There's a lesson, something to check off on your list of possible lessons. You now know about multi-dimensional arrays. So what we've just created here is a two-dimensional array. It's an array where each element is also an array. So now you know about that. That's, I don't know, somehow they make a big deal out of the fact that we should teach you about multi-dimensional arrays. Now you know. Okay, good. So we've sort of got this thing, sort of understand what we're doing. We have a pretty good idea how to open up this file now and split it into usable pieces. Yep.
You're recording, right?
Yes, I'm recording. So we know how to do that. So let's take a quick look here. Do we have all the information we need now? Yep.
We don't necessarily know which is the right answer.
Yeah. So we don't know which is the right answer. So that's going to make it hard to make a game that tests if you got the right answer. Yep.
Isn't the right answer the last index?
Well, we'll have to figure that one out on our own, because that information isn't given to us. But we can hopefully there's a few of these things that we know the answer for, and maybe we'll see a pattern that develops. So the first question was a fairly easy one. What's the main solid ingredient of alphabet soup? Pasta. Right? I hope so. Well, how many cups of tea does the average English person drink a day? I have no idea. Let's try a better question. How many frogs does the average Frenchman eat a year? I'm seeing a pattern developing in the questions, but I don't know the answers to these. Okay, what is the newest Smarty color since the late 1980s? Blue. So, there seems to be a pattern in the two that we've seen. Let's just keep checking this. The name of which island is also an orange liqueur? Curacao. It's funny that it's called an orange liqueur because it's orange flavored, but it's actually blue in color. Blue Curacao. And maybe we can figure out another one. In which country does pivo mean beer? I know this one because I've been there. It's the Czech Republic. Okay. So what's the pattern here? First answer is always correct. So that seems to be the pattern. So you're presented with 4 answers, and the first one is correct. All right. So let's get out of there and start coding up what we've learned through this little exploratory session. So we want to start with a working program and just refine it. So, well, the first thing we can do is just print some welcome message. Okay, so now we have a working program. It presents you with a welcome message and then quits. Now we just learned how to open up that file and tear it all apart. So let's write a function that does that. So we'll load the questions, and maybe we'll take a file name as an argument. Maybe we could have multiple question files, so that might be helpful. So what did we do? We opened the file called file name. We read it. Then we split it into lines. And that gave us an array of lines. And then we took that array of lines and we split each of those again. So questions is equal to line for line and lines. And we don't just want that line as a string. We want to split it. Using tabs. So I've noticed, took a quick look at some of the assignment 2s. I noticed a lot of you are using for loops for a lot of things, which is fine, and in many programming languages that's all you have available. But once you get used to this syntax here, these list comprehensions, you'll see that a lot of for loops are totally unnecessary. Because they basically build, the way many of you are doing things is if you have to create an array full of stuff, you create an empty array, then you do a for loop that adds stuff to it. Almost always you can just do that using a list comprehension, right? So this is basically like starting with an empty array and iterating over each line, and then to that array adding the result of splitting that line at t. So this does it all in one shot. And something also a lot of you do, which is okay as well, but it's not totally necessary, is you write code like this. So that, you say x equals something, and then the next line is return x. Not necessary, right? So you can just return whatever you want to return right away. Okay. So there's our code. Yep. File name. Let's check that it's working. Okay. So, welcome to Quiz Game. I hope you're ready to play. And then it opened the questions file, and then quit. Maybe we'll just add a message at the end. Okay. Implemented. Quitting. Okay, so we still have a working program, and this time we got as far as loading the list of questions. So what's the next thing we should maybe work on having this game do? Yep. Okay, so make it possible to choose an answer. Is there another, before we do that, before we can ask someone to choose an answer, what do we need to do? What's that? So we need to pick a question, or maybe we need to, we'll need to pick a question. So let's pick a question, Q, and here's an easy choice of a question, which is, we'll just pick the first question. We'll probably want to fix that up and do something smarter than that later, but whatever. Okay, now what? We asked the user to answer the question? Yep. Okay, so pick a question and randomize the answers. So maybe let's assume for now that the player is not that smart, so we'll skip the randomization step for now, and but still, what do we need to do? Yeah. Okay, so what we should probably do is show the question before we ask them to answer it, right? So we should print the question before answering it. So let's make a function, because it's actually fairly elaborate, that will print a question for us. So Q is this question, remember, which is an array. So the 0th element in Q is actually the question itself. So probably the first thing we want to do is print Q at 0. Okay. Now, what next? Yep. So we want to print the possible answers. So there's 4 possible answers, and they're at positions Q at 1, Q at 2, Q at 3, Q at 4. So if we want an integer I to iterate over 1, 2, 3, 4, how do we do that? What's that? Yeah. So a range takes the starting value for the range. We want to start at 1, and we want to finish at 4. And a range actually, the second value is 1 more than the final value. So we want to range from 1 to 5. And then we want to print something like maybe the answer number, and then the actual value of the answer. So I and Q at I. One of those is an integer, percentage %d, and the other one is a string, percentage %s. So let's see if we've made something that works. Great. Oops. So this line of code should always go at the end. This is the line that says, okay, we're done now. We've only got this far with our implementation. Good. So welcome to the quiz game. I hope you're ready to play. And then a question pops up. Looks like it's formatted correctly, right? There's the 4 possible answers, 1 through 4, and the question before that. So one thing that's nice to do in games, and that can make them, I wouldn't say more exciting, but actually somehow more polished and playable, is to add delays for no good reason. So for example, here it's a little disconcerting to get hit with this wall of text in this question right away, right? So it's actually helpful to take a little break maybe and give the user a little bit of time to read the welcome message before presenting them with a question. So there's this module called time. Some of you know about it because you used it in assignment 1. That has a method called sleep in it. So there, you're presented with the welcome message, wait 2 seconds, and then you're presented with the first question. Okay, so now we want to read an answer from the user. So how should a user enter their answer? Yep. So we should do maybe do a prompt. So something like raw input, and I don't know, the prompt can specify what we want. So we'd like them to pick one of these options, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay. So, all right, so now they enter something, and we want to check that. So how do we check that they answered in some valid way?
Using an if statement that checks if the value was between 1 and 4.
Okay, so we want something like an if statement, and I want to be fairly rigorous with this, so I really only want them to enter the integers 1, 2, 3, or 4. Not 12, not 1.5, none of those things. So there's a few ways we can do that, and probably we should. It's good. it's good practice to strip user input. Does anybody remember what strip does? It gets rid of any white space at the beginning or the end of the string. So it won't get rid of spaces in the middle, because those could be meaningful, but usually white space at the beginning or end of a string is not meaningful. And once we've done that, we really are only expecting to see one character here, and it's either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And so, let's say, so I'll keep asking this question as long as the answer is not in this set, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I should say, yep.
Could you use a do-while loop there instead? Get rid of the stuff at the top, like a not-do-while loop?
I could if Python had do-while loops, but it doesn't.
Really?
Yeah. So that was like I said, Python is basically created by one person who has certain feelings, strong feelings about the way programming languages should look and the way programs should look, and those do not include do-while loops. So his vision doesn't include do-while loops. So there are benefits and drawbacks to having a language which is designed by one person. The benefit is you can, if this person has good taste, you can end up with a really clean language that doesn't have a lot of extraneous stuff. The drawback is, well, if this person doesn't like some feature that you do, well, you don't get it. The alternative is to design a language using a committee, in which case usually the language has everything imaginable in it, and it's painful to use. C++, for example, of such a language. Okay, so we ask them for an input, we strip it. If it's not 1, 2, 3, or 4, then we ask them again. Okay, and then finally we want to return that answer. So at this point in the code, we're sure that answer is a string that is 1, 2, 3, or 4, and it's probably more useful to return it as an integer than it is as a string. And we're completely sure at this point that that if we convert this thing to an int, then we're not going to raise an exception. There's going to be no problem because we know exactly what it is. There's only 4 possible answers at that point. Okay, so we print a question, and now we, what did we say? What was that called? Read answer. Okay, what's the main solid ingredient of alphabet soup? So I will say rice. Good, that seems to have worked. And let's test it again with invalid input. 42, nope, nope. Can try and do anything. If I don't give it an integer between 1 and 4, I just won't accept it. That's good. So that's a nice, robust way of accepting an answer. Now what? Yep. So we should check if the answer is right. And how do we know if the answer is right? Okay. So if answer equals 1, then we'll say correct. Otherwise, we'll say incorrect. The answer was and let's say Q at 1, Q at 1. So let's try that. Okay, so rice, incorrect. The answer was percentage D, percentage S, 1 pasta. There's a problem there. I didn't use the printf operator, and there's something that's bugging me every time we run this. The delay is a little bit too long, and I would like a little bit of space before each question. So maybe just an extra print. Okay, a little bit nicer. So incorrect answer, good, tells me what it says that it's incorrect, tells me what the correct answer was, and a correct answer tells me that I'm correct. All right. So, so now we've got basically our main process, or main thing that you repeatedly do in a quiz game, which is ask a question. So let's put that in a while loop. And for now, we'll just make this game run forever. Okay, so now we have a working program, and it'll just keep asking us questions forever. So what's the boring part of this program right now? It's always going to ask the same question. So that's a pretty easy one to fix. We would like to ask different questions all the time. And so have we seen how to do this before? Yeah, so in random, so basically we want to ask different questions all the time, which, you know, we could ask question 0, then question 1, then question 2, and so on. But that would be boring if you played the game more than once, because you would keep getting asked the same questions. So whenever you have this kind of thing, you're thinking about asking, you know, different questions all the time. You want some randomness. So then you go and look up Python's random module. Which has a lot of stuff in it. And it even has, so, you know, it gives you random numbers. So we could, for example, get a random integer between 0 and the number of questions minus 1. But it actually, that's such a common thing that it already has that for us. So there's a function called random choice sequence. Return a random element from some sequence. Good. So we want a random question, so let's just use that. Q is random.choice and the sequence we have is this list of questions. And since we're using random, we have to import it. Good. Anybody know the answer to this one? How did you know the answer? Yeah. Okay. So it's working, but still a little bit boring, because I don't even have to read the question before I can answer it correctly, because the right answer is always 1. So yellow submarine, animals. If I say 2, I get it wrong. Okay? All right. So that's fine. So now to make this interesting, we need to randomize the possible answers. We can't just have it always be 1 is the correct answer all the time. So, any idea how to do that? Yep.
You could use the random dot choice once again and do it as a
So I could use random dot choice, and what would I do with that though? Yep.
You could, put it in a while loop, but every time the random twisted, the time you run it, you take the chosen array active, so it shows an element out of question.
Okay. So you're saying you could, for example, pick a random integer between 1 and 4, because those are the possible things, and that thing that you pick will be the first possible answer you displayed, so the thing that will be displayed as answer 1. And then you pick a random integer from the remaining 3 numbers, so whatever those were, and then the remaining 2 numbers, and then finally the last one. So what you're talking about is actually making what's called a permutation. So you just want to take these elements 1 through 4 and reorder them in some way that's random. Okay, so let's take a look. So permutation is the key word there. Let's see if we have such a thing. Good. So if I look at permutation on this random page, I see that there's something called shuffle that will take an array and randomly permute it. Okay. So what is it that I want to shuffle? Yep.
The order that the answers appear in.
So I would like to shuffle the order that the answers appear in. Okay. Now, if I just take those answers and shuffle them randomly like this, am I going to have a problem? Yep. Yeah, so if I just take them in place and shuffle them, then I won't know anymore which one is the correct one. So actually, I'll do something a little bit more clever than that. What I will do is shuffle just the indices. So I pick a question, and I'll make a permutation which is obtained by doing a shuffle of the range that contains the elements 1 through 4. So let's just explore what that does. And that's not, I have to be careful. So don't pick, but take the range that contains 1, 2, 3, 4. So P is now an array. And now I want to shuffle P. So let's see what the outcome is, just so we all understand what happens here. So P right now is 1, 2, 3, 4. But after I shuffle it, after I import random and then shuffle it, P is some random permutation now. If I shuffle it again, I get a different random permutation. If I shuffle it again, I get a different random permutation. So random shuffle does not, there we go. Okay, so weird things happen when you use randomness. So there is And this looks a little fishy to me, but random shuffle claims to make random permutations. It's a little surprising to me that we would get the same one twice in a row. It's bound to happen eventually, but okay, we'll ignore that for now. So P now is this random permutation of 1 through 4. Okay, so now we want to print the question, but we want the answers to be shuffled. So print question will make it take this permutation as well. So it takes the question, and it takes the permutation of the answers. And so the ith choice that the user has is actually going to be the question or the answer P at I. Okay? Is that clear? Right? So for example, if P is 4, 3, 2, 1, then the first thing that the user is going to see as an option, their option 1 is actually going to be what's option 4 stored in the question. The second thing they'll see is their option 2 is actually option 3, their option 3 is actually option 2, and their option 4 is actually option 1. Okay? So let's, yeah.
So in that case, the correct thing for them to input would be 4?
So in this case, the correct thing for them to input would be 4, because their option 4 is actually what's truly option 1 in the file. Okay? So let's not break our program, but just to help us understand what's happening here, let's just go back to the silly case where we keep asking the same question, and maybe we'll get a good picture. List index out of range. Okay, so we have a bug. Okay. So P is an array that has 4 elements in it. Those elements are the integers 1 through 4. But what are the indices that we can use on P? So if an array has 4 elements, what are the valid indices? 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I here is ranging from 1 through 4. We actually want to only index P using 0 through 3, so we want to subtract 1 from I. Okay, so that was the, remember the question, the alphabet soup question. The correct answer is pasta. Used to be option 1, but now it's option 3. So from this we can actually know what P is. So P at position, at the third position, which is index 2, is the integer 1. So it's the correct option here. All right, so let's pick that. But it tells me that that's incorrect. The correct answer was 1, pasta. But wait, 3 was pasta. So we have to fix the rest of our code, because the rest of our code assumed that the correct answer was 1, right? So we print the question, we read the answer. Okay. So what do we need to check here? What's that? Well, we have the right answer saved, actually, or we know the right answer. Right, so if, let's draw the picture we have here. So we have this array P, and P contains 4 values, and maybe it looks like this. So that's what's contained in P. If we look at the indices of P, they are 0, 1, 2, 3. But if you look at how we print those out, how we display those to the user, they're shown as option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. Because generally, users don't like options that start with 0, so we'll stick with this interface that has 1 through 4. If for no other reason than 1 through 4 are right beside each other on the keyboard, 0 is way over on the other side. So if this is P, then what's the correct answer for the user? What's that? Why 0? So this is what the user sees. This is an index into the question. And then this is just indices in P. Not so interesting. So in the question, what's the correct answer?
3.
So in the question, the correct answer is the first one. It's at position 1. So since this is an index into the question, this represents the correct answer. The user sees this as their third option. So if the user enters 3, they've got it correctly. Okay? Now, P is indexed by 0 through 0, 1, 2, and 3. So actually, what we're looking at in P is whatever the user input, that index minus 1. Okay? So really, the condition, you are correct if P at answer minus 1, right? If the answer is 3, answer minus 1 is 2, and P at answer, or P at 2 is 1, if that's equal to 1. So that's what it means to give a correct answer. Okay? So here we want if P at answer minus 1 is equal to 1, then that's the correct answer. Okay, good. Now, this other line of code is broken. There's 2 ways we can fix it, but the easiest is just to ignore this part. Is just to print the correct answer. Don't bother explaining what they should have picked, what integer that was. They can check that themselves. Okay. So let's see how we're doing here. Okay. So let's try an incorrect answer, which is egg. So incorrect. The answer was pasta. Let's try a let's try a correct answer, which is 1, pasta. Tells us it's correct. Let's try 1 again, just to make sure that it's not going to tell us if it's correct when it's 1. Incorrect. The answer was pasta. So pasta's up at 1 again. Pasta's down at 3. And so indeed this works. So potato, nope. The answer was pasta. Okay. So this is back to working again. And now that we've debugged that little bit, we can go back to picking real questions, not just the same one over and over again. And there's something else I'd like to fix a little bit. Again, it's disconcerting to answer and then immediately have this thing jump to the next question before you even got to see if your answer was correct or not. So maybe we can make this just a little bit nicer to use. Okay. Which role was not played by Peter Sellers in the film Dr. Strangelove? Anybody seen this movie? Anybody remember who Peter Sellers didn't play? So he played something like 10 characters in the movie. Let's take a guess. So General Jack D. Ripper was the one he didn't play. Who sang the Bond theme song, All Time High? Sheryl Crow? I doubt it. Rita Coolidge? Ray and Dave were brothers in which band? Tough questions, eh? What's that? Kinks? Diamonds Are Forever. Shirley Bassey? Correct. Who created Woody Woodpecker? I'm guessing Walter Lantz, but it could be Tex Avery. Correct. Diego was a character in which animated film? Ice Age? All right. Okay. So we seem to have this thing working now, but it's still missing some elements of actually being a game. So what sort of features are there of games that this is still missing? Yep. Exclamation points, so we need some of those, but we have one. And whenever we get something correct, you get one exclamation point. We don't want to make it too exciting. Yep.
Regular points?
Regular points, so score. Good, so maybe we want to keep track of score. So start with a score of 0, and when you get an answer correct, we'll add 1,000 to your score. And it's nice to get some feedback. So maybe each time we do this, we'll print your score as well. Okay, so now we have a score. First person to sell 1 million records. Sinatra? I don't know. No. Enrico Caruso. What nationality was Odd Job and Goldfinger? I'll guess Burmese. No. Korean. Okay. Marcus or Pintel? So you guys know do you remember Pintel from the movie? Okay, good. So our score is now 1,000. 2,000. 1987 is before most of you were born. Sadly. Which band was not from Liverpool? The Crows. Okay.
Wait,
Shouldn't have gone up. We got the wrong answer. Okay, so what else? Yep. We should reduce your score if you get it wrong? Sure, we can reduce scores. So I don't know, wrong could be minus 500 or something. Yep. So what happens if you get a negative score? So I don't know what should happen. You should lose the game. So then we could say that you can keep playing as long as your score is bigger than or equal to 0. So it's kind of rough on the first question. Good. Oh man, we're doing great. First person to have a #1 album. Sinatra. We're doing awesome. Snagglepuss was what? Cat? I thought it was a cat, but it was a lion. How many Oscars did The English Patient win? Wrong. They won 9. Won 9. What's the friendly vacuum cleaner in the Teletubbies called? Correct. Great work. I don't know. Try that. Okay. So we have this score that goes up and down. It's a little harsh at the beginning, maybe. Good. Who was not a character in Pocahontas? Wrong. Who created Porky Pig? In the Die Hard movies, what's the character's name? Not Ringo? Okay. So we have that. Seems reasonable. What else is missing from this game? Yep. Lives. Okay, so we've sort of got lives in the sense that you build up score, and if it gets too low, you die. We could explicitly add lives if we want. I don't know. So start with lives is 3. And what should we do? The lives has to be, you still have to have some lives left, and your score has to be bigger than or equal to 0. And then when we print this update, score is percentage %D, lives C. Yep. Sorry, what's that? Sorry, can you guys go outside if you want to talk? Yeah.
I said it's kind of redundant to have scoring taken away because your final score is just going to be whatever your top score is minus 1500.
Yeah, so somehow these two things don't mix that well. So the observation is that, well, if you lose a life, well, it's not that they don't mix well, but they're sort of redundant. If you lose a life every time you get something incorrect, then you can only get 3 answers incorrect. So either this thing will end because your score is 0, or it's going to be basically 1,000 times the number of correct answers minus 1,500. So, yeah.
How about when you get something wrong when your points is under 0, you lose a life?
Yeah, could do that. So that would look like this. You say while lives is bigger than 0. So we don't take away a life for that, but we do something like say, if score is less than 0, lives equals lives minus 1, and maybe we should set your score back to 0 so we don't punish you repeatedly. Okay, so lots of different ways to play with that. Well, what's another element of games that's still missing here? Yeah? Time limit. So it might be useful to have a time limit so you can't just go and Google every single question. Anything else? Yeah? What's that? High scores, yeah. A little bit more fundamental still. Yeah. Pardon? Difficulty. So games, usually you like them to get harder and harder as time goes on. And do we have a mechanism for that?
Not really.
Well, it turns out that we do. We just didn't notice it yet. If we look at this file, there's the question, there is the 4 answers, then there's a category, and then there's this number here. And actually this number is supposed to represent the difficulty of the question. So alphabet soup is an easy one. Cups, how many cups of tea does the average English person drink? That's a more difficult one. And if we look at some more of these, we have 1s, we have 2s, we have 3s. So there are at least 1s, 2s, and 3s in here. So we could make this harder at least up to a point by starting with easy questions and working our way up to hard ones. So here's a so maybe we want a level here. So we start at level 1, and when should we go up a level? Yep. Every 5 questions? Okay. Sounds good. So then we'll want a counter for that. And something like that. And maybe we need to do 1 plus that. So for the first 5 questions, counter divided by 5 is 0. Or for the first 4 questions, it's 0. And so then we start at 1, 2, then 3. Any problem with this? Yeah.
If somebody is really bad at it and really, really bad at it, it just gets harder and harder regardless of how well they're doing.
Yeah. if that depends, so whether you like that or not depends on how you feel about the people playing the game. If this is an arcade game, for example, where somebody playing the game is preventing someone else from putting coins into the game, then you want it to just get harder and harder based on time, essentially. If it's a game to play at home, maybe you want to be a little bit nicer. We'll stick with this one for now, but there's a bigger problem here. Yeah.
How about instead, like, when they get, like, to a certain amount of points, they go below? Because they lose points when they get something wrong.
Sure. So instead, that would look like score maybe divided by 3,000, something like that. So every 3 correct answers increases your level. But there's a bigger problem here. Yep.
You don't actually choose the questions according to the level.
So I don't choose the questions yet according to the level. And if I'm going to do that, then I can't just let the levels go crazy, right? I can't get to level 50 because there's no level 50 questions in this file. So we should be careful and maybe just cap this thing at level 3. So a level is never more than level 3, but it can be as big as this. And well, if we're going to go by the number of base the level on your score, then we don't need this counter. Okay. All right, but now we need to pick a question that is that's at the correct level. How do we do that? Yep.
Check the last
Okay. Okay, so at level 1, we want to pick questions that are have hardness 1, level 2, questions that have hardness 2, and so on. But how do we enforce that? So here's how we picked our question currently. We pick a random question. Yep.
You keep choosing until you get a question that's left on the
Okay. So here we can use a technique called rejection sampling. That if we want to pick a random question which has hardness 3, among all the questions that has hardness 3, what we do is pick a random question, and if that one doesn't have hardness 3, we throw it out and pick another random question. So that's the same thing as picking that'll give us the same result as picking one that's random among all the questions that have level 3. So while Q at, so what tells us the level? This is 0. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Q at 6 is the level. And just so we can test quickly, let's be super aggressive with the leveling and just level up every 1,000 points. Yep. So this is taking more than the 1 second. Oh. Anybody see the problem? Yeah. So Q at 6 is a string, level is an integer, so they're never going to be equal. So we want to convert Q at 6 to an integer. And I'm confident that that will work, so I will get rid of the debug statements. Okay, which question did Duran Duran ask in 1983? How long? Incorrect. Who managed the Sex Pistols? Wrong. He was in the Sex Pistols, but he didn't manage them, I guess. Who fought the law? I fought the law. Good. What make of cars were tested by dummies and driven by the intelligent? Ford? No, Volvos. What's Agent Mulder's first name in the X-Files? Fox. Okay. Which Stanley Kubrick film is based on a novel by Anthony Burgess? Clockwork Orange. Now we're at level 2. What time was a hit for Meatloaf? Anybody know what this question is about even? Now we're at level 3. These are the hard ones. Before joining the Beatles, Ringo Starr was in which band? In which film do the words "I love you" save the planet Earth? So I don't think so, but oh, there you go. Wrong. Okay, so we'll leave it at there today. Go ahead and play this game in your own time.